give it up for Melly Cazell. Let's go.
Hello, Ferndale. So this might be an unpopular opinion, but I really like the safety glass they've installed at the grocery stores because of the pandemic. And it's because my family has this condition, and it's very serious. There's nothing we can do about it. We all have it. It's a very serious, uncontrollable medical condition. And what happens is when someone talks to us in an accent that's different from ours, we have to, because of our condition, do their voice back to them. And there's a woman at my local grocery store with a beautiful southern drawl. And she's very nice when I come in. And she says, "Well, hi, darling, how are you?" And I find myself saying back, because of my condition, "Well, I'm doing great. How are you, peaches and cream?" And she laughs, and she says, "Oh, are you making fun of me?" And I say, "No, ma'am, but I also cannot stop because of my condition." But I can see her behind that safety glass just thinking, if this glass wasn't here, I could reach around and smack that girl. Now, when the pandemic ends, I am going to have to find a new grocery store. But until then, I'm safe. But because of this very serious condition, I've learned a lot about accents all across the United States. And the first thing I noticed is that the Minnesota-Wisconsin accent perfectly represents my relationship with my sister. Because the Wisconsin accent kind of sounds like Minnesota's little sister with a lisp. And when the United States first started, Minnesota made a lot of great cheese. They made so much great cheese, it was fantastic, and everybody loved it. And then Wisconsin came in and they said, "Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna supply the most cheese in the entire United States just to show you up." And Minnesota kept her cool, and she said, "Hey, little sis, I'm just glad you're following your bliss." And then Minnesota decided to branch out. And she decided to start her own football team. She said, "You know what? We're gonna be the Minnesota Vikings for a strong and powerful football team." And then Wisconsin said, "Oh yeah? Well, I'm gonna start my own football team too. And our mascot is gonna be cheese. And we're gonna win way more games than your football team." And at this point, Minnesota lost it. And she said, "Oh my God, why do you have to copy everything I do? I just want to do my own thing." And Wisconsin said, "Oh yeah? Well, I don't copy everything you do. At least my state doesn't smell like a giant cow fart." Then they kept arguing about whose team was better. But what neither one of them realizes is that by constantly being in competition, they've always been pushing each other to be better. And both of their states smell like a giant cow fart. Now, I have run into a little trouble doing bits with accents in the past. I think it's because people think I'm coming into it with the idea that I don't have an accent, that my voice is normal. I know I have an accent. It's just the worst one. We all have it. It's the Washington, Oregon, California accent. And here's how I know it's the worst accent. I can guarantee this is a universal experience in this room. Have you ever had that moment where your friend recorded something you said and then played it back to you and you thought, "Is that what I sound like?" No, nobody would sound like that, because that would be annoying. And I've also noticed that the Southern accent is made fun of very similarly to ours, because it sounds like ours, but if we were also drunk. Because after the Civil War, they just got smashed, and they were like, "You know what? Didn't go as we planned, so we're just gonna give up on talking to people." And I don't have the energy to say things like, "How do you do?" So I'm just gonna say howdy. And I don't have the time to say things like you all. So I'm just gonna say y'all. I love that y'all is the one thing the South got right. Because nowadays there are a lot of things if you walk into a room with people and say, they get very upset. You can't walk in and say, "Hey you guys," because of the patriarchy. You can't walk in and say, "Hey you gals," because someone might identify as a shoe. So now we got a bunch of liberal college students walking around saying, "Hey, y'all." And the South caught wind of this, and they're having a meeting. And Texas is in charge. And this accent sounds a lot like you're swallowing a bowl full of molasses. And he says, "What are we gonna do about these liberal college students saying y'all?" And then Florida comes in, and she sounds like your aunt who is already drunk and ready to cause a problem. And she says, "I got it. We will go up there and release the gators." And Florida says, "You have got to stop suggesting that at meetings." That joke is based on a true story. A woman in Florida was pulled over for a broken taillight. As the officer approached her window, she yelled, "You're not taking my gators," and then proceeded to pull 4 baby alligators out of her leggings. And people wonder why Florida wasn't scared of the coronavirus. But back to the meeting. So Texas says, "What are we gonna do?" And Louisiana, New Orleans jumps in and they say, "Hey, what about instead of being mad at each other, we just shaved some beads, flashed some boobies, and all had sex with each other?" And Texas says, "We have got to stop inviting Florida and Louisiana to these meetings." And Texas looks around and he says, "I'm making an executive decision. I know none of us want to go to that Pacific Northwest because of them murder hornets. Not because we're scared of them, but because if those people can't handle a slightly bigger bee, they definitely can't handle us. So I've decided, y'all, damn it, we have got to stop saying y'all." Thank you, Ferndale.
I identify as a shoe.